Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So tonight in Traweeh we will be reciting inshallah Surah AnNamal, Surah AlQasas and part of Surah AlAnkaboot. So inshallah we'll do some brief understanding of some of the verses. The word AnNamal means the ant. And in this surah there is a story about Sulaiman alayhi salam's journey. And we will understand when we reach to the ayat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts the surah by saying, Tafseerul tilka ayatul Qur'ani wa kitabin mubin. That these are the verses of Al-Quran and a clear book. Hudan wa bushra lil mu'mineen. This book is a guidance and a good news for those who believe. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions some of the events and incidents that took place between Sulaiman alayhi salam and a few other people. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says Sulaiman alayhi salam, after he inherited from his father Dawood alayhi salam the kingdom, he said to the people, Ya ayyuhan nasu ullimna mantiqat tayri. O the people, we have been taught, he is telling about himself, the speech of the birds. We understand how the birds talk to each other. وَأُوتِينَا مِن كُلِّ شَيْءٍ, and we have been given everything. Then one day, Sulaiman alayhi salam gathered all his armies, including the jinn, ins, the people, and the birds. And they were allowed to do a march. Until they arrived, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, in a valley which is called the Wadi Namli, the valley of the ants. And they were going fast from that valley, and there were a lot of ants in that area. So, qalat namlatun ya ayyuhal namlu. So one of the ants said, Oh, all the ants, udkhulu masakinakum, go and enter in your houses. La yahtimannakum Sulaimanu wa junuduhu, that maybe Sulaiman and his armies will crush you. Wahum la yash'urun, and they will not even know because they are going fast from the valley. So Sulaiman alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him the ability to understand the language of other creation. Fatabassama dhahikam min qawliha, so he smiled and laughing what he heard from the ant she was talking. Then he said, Qala Rabbi awzi'ni, wa Allah, give me the ability an ashkura ni'mataka allati, that I should be thankful to your blessings. An'amta alayya, that you have done upon me, wa ala walidayya, and upon my parents. Then one day he was taking the attendance of all his birds, and he found that one bird called Hudhud, the hippo, was missing. So he said, where is he? I will punish him, adaban shadidan, a severe punishment. Aw la azbannahu, or I will just slaughter him because he is missing without my permission. But فَمَكَثَ غَيْرَ بَعِيدٍ, so it did not take very long. The bird came back flying, and he told Sulaiman alayhi salam that I have come to know about Saba, the state of Sheba, and I have brought a definite news from there which you don't know. Inni wajadtum ra'atun, he said, I have found a woman, tamlikuhum, she is ruling over the people there, wa utiyat min kulli shay'in, and she has been given all the things. Walaha arshun azim, and she has a very great arsh, throne. So he said, Wajadtuha wa qawmaha, I have found her and her people, yasjuduna lishamsi min dunillah, that they are worshipping the sun other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa zayyana lahum ash-shaytanu a'malahum, and the shaitan has beautified for them their deeds. So first Sulaiman alayhi salam did not believe him. But then he said, okay, we will find out. So he wrote a letter and gave to the bird, Hudhud, take it and drop, fly over there to the kingdom of Sheba and drop it by the queen. So she picked up the letter, and then she said to the people who were sitting there, Ya ayyuhal mala'u, O my chiefs here, inni ulqiya ilayya kitabun kareem. I have been given here, a letter has been dropped by me, which is a very noble letter. So she read the letter. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that innahu min Sulaymana wa innahu bismillahir rahmanir rahim. The letter started by the name Sulaiman and Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. And this is the only place in the Quran where the full word of Bismillahir rahmanir rahim comes in this surah. Allah ta'alu alayya wa atuni muslimin. The letter said that you come submitting to me and bring everything here. So she did some consultation with the people who were in her court. She was the queen. And they said, we are fighters, we can fight. But she said, no. When people, the armies take over, they kill the people in the city and township and they take their houses. So she sent some gifts to Sulaiman alayhi salam in the next few ayahs, which he returned. He says, we don't need your gifts, take them back. So she decided that she is going to come and visit Sulaiman alayhi salam. So she left her kingdom and started her journey. In the meantime, Sulaiman alayhi salam found out that she is on her way. So he said to the people in his court, who can bring her throne to me? So there was a jinn, Ifritum min al jinni. He said, I'm going to bring before you get up from your place. But then there was another man who had the knowledge of ilmul kitab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given him knowledge, some special knowledge. He said, I will bring that throne from there to you in the matter of the time that even your eyes will not blink. And then Sulaiman saw that the throne was sitting there. Upon that, he says, Qala nakiru laha arsha. He told his people, make some minor changes. We want to see if this queen is a smart queen. She will recognize that this is her throne or a similar throne. So she arrived there and she saw the arsh. And somebody said, is this like your? And she said, yeah, it is something like that. She did not clearly answer. But then someone said, let's enter the palace. So when she arrived at the entrance, she saw there was a pond of water. She thought there was some water, so she opened her ankles so her clothes, bottom of the clothes don't get wet. And this is all in the Quran. And so somebody said, don't do it because this is not water, this is just the glass floor and it has some reflection of some kind, so it looks like water. So she said that, Rabbi anni zalamtu nafsi, I have done wrong to myself. وَأَسْلَمْتُ مَعَ سُلَيْمَانَ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And I submit with Sulaiman alayhi salam to Rabbil Alameen. So the story of Queen of Sheba and Sulaiman alayhi salam ends here. But historically there are, because these stories are also common in the other faiths. So there are more stories, and Wallah alam how much the truth is in the rest of these stories, which is history, that he married her and that she lived with her some time. She lived in his palace for some time, and then even in the Ahle Yahud, they say that she got divorced and she went back to her kingdom. Wallah. But that's not all. That's not anything in the Quran. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the story. Actually, there are some ayahs that I want to translate. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts forth some questions to the people. And then, knowing that they cannot answer, he himself answers. Allah says, Amman ja'ala al-arda qararan. Who is there who has made this earth as a very stable place? وَجَعَلَ خِلَالَهَا أَنْهَارًا. And he has placed the rivers and the streams in it. وَجَعَلَ لَهَا رَوَاسِيَ. Who is the one who has placed the firm mountains on the earth? وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَ الْبَحْرَيْنِ حَاجِزًا. Who is the one who has placed a curtain between the two oceans? And knowing that people cannot give the right answer, Allah himself answers, Ailahum ma'allah. Is there anyone along with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And the answer is no. Allah says, Bal aksaruhum la ya'lamun. But most of the people do not know. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put forth another question. Amman yujibul muttarra iza da'ahu. Who is there who can respond and listen to the call of a person who is in a distress situation when he calls him? وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ, and he opens up the difficulty for him. وَيَجْعَلُكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ الْأَرْضِ, and he has made you the Khalifa on the earth. And so, knowing that people cannot correctly answer, Allah Himself first says, Ilahumma Allah, is there anyone along with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says upon the condition of the mankind, Qalilam ma tazakkarun, it's a very little things that you give and ponder and pay attention. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts forth another question. Amma yahdikum fi zulumatil barri wal bahri. Who is there who guides you to the darkness of the ocean and the land? وَمَنْ يُرْسِلُ الرِّيَاحَ بُشْرًا بَيْنَ يَدَيْ رَحْمَتِهِ. And who is the one who sends the cold breeze before the rain starts coming down? So it's a good news for you that rain is about to happen. Allah Himself answers by saying, Ilahumma Allah, is there anyone along with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And then again Allah says, Ta'ala Allahu amma yushrikun. Allah is very exalted above what they associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One more question Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Amma yabda'ul khalqa. Who is the one who starts the creation? Thumma yu'iduhu, and then He will repeat it. وَمَنْ يَرْزُقُكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And who is the one who gives you provision from the heaven and from the sky and from the earth? And then Allah Himself answered by saying, Ilahumma Allah, is there anyone along with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of these questions challenges the mankind that if you think that someone else besides me is doing all these things, قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ, then bring and show me your proofs. In kuntum sadiqeen, if you are speaking the truth. After that we will recite Surah AlQasas. Surah AlQasas is mostly the stories of the previous nations, previous messengers. And it starts with the story of Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun, and how the struggle took place between them, and finally how Fir'aun and his armies were drowned. Then after that there are the stories in this surah. Al-Qasas means the story, basically narration. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the story of Midian, and then the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and then Qawm Ad and Qawm Samud. So among all these people, different messengers were sent, and at the end, the nations Qawm Lut were destroyed as a result of they did not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is the combination of multiple stories. Also in this surah, one man is mentioned who was among the Bani Israel. His name was Qarun, and at the time he was given a lot of wealth, and he came out with arrogance and claiming that I have achieved all my wealth by my knowledge, by my ilm, not that this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those people who were kind of greedy, they always thought that he's a very lucky man. But Allah's punishment came upon him. Allah says, فَخَرَجَ عَلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ فِي زِينَتِهِ. He came out in front of his people with all kind of adornments on him. And the people who yuriduna hayat dunya, those people who wanted the worldly life, they said, we wish we were like him, lucky that we had so much wealth. So what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says? فَخَسَفْنَا بِهِ. So we made the earth swallow him. وَبِدَارِهِ, and all his palaces and everything in the land. So the earth opened up like an earthquake, and he fell down in there along with all his houses, and they were drowned and swallowed by the earth. And Allah said there was no one who could help him at that time. So this will basically be the Surah Al-Qasas, and after that I'll briefly mention Surah AlAnkaboot. Part of the surah will be recited. Surah Al-Ankabut means the spider. And in one ayat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells people that the weakest house is the house of the spider, the web that spider makes between the leaves and branches. Allah says that is the weakest of the houses. And by saying that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving the example of those people that who do wrong deeds. What their example is not any different than the spider and its example. So inshallah we'll stop here. As I mentioned, tonight we will be reciting 3 surahs. Surah AlAnkaboot is the last one. Before that, first surah will be Surah AnNamal. After that, Surah AlQasas. And after that, Surah AlAnkaboot. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Awhanal buyuti la baytul ankabut. The weakest of the house is the house of a spider. La kanu ya'lamun. Allah says, we wish that these people could know and understand. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to understand the Quran and act upon it. Sadaqallah.